Hey everyone, and welcome back. Thanks so much for joining us for this episode of She Lights the Way, where every week we dive into the inspiring journeys of unsung women who are doing pretty cool things and lighting the way for all of us. I'm your host, Nicole Huseman. I am so honored to bring you my conversation with Beth Corbett. Beth is a true inspiration for women navigating male dominated fields like packaging and supply chain solutions. I first met Beth back when I was a freshman at the University of Oregon, away from home for the first time. She was the president of our sorority. Today, she's a woman who is fearlessly cracking the code of the corporate boys club.
I think I'm like probably every other woman out there that I've had times where I just didn't have enough faith in myself or I didn't appreciate my full value. My two biggest mistakes in my entire career, which I think are really normal, is staying at a place or in a position too long and then honestly not appreciating my worth, my value. There were a number of years that I was underpaid. I think that's a mistake that a ton of women make.
From her early years, when mentorship among women was scarce, to her current role as the president of the enterprise group at packaging firm AE Global, Beth's journey is a testament to the power of perseverance, resilience, and unwavering determination in the face of sexism and self-doubt. During her earlier tenure at Nina Paper, one of the world's marquee paper manufacturers, she worked with premier brands like Tiffany, Estee Lauder, L'Oreal, and Starbucks. During our conversation, we talk about confronting ruckus boardroom behavior, advocating for fair compensation, building strong, supportive teams and environments where women's voices are truly heard, and much, much more. So let's dive in. Beth, I can't tell you how wonderful it is that you're here today with us and we get to have this wonderful conversation. Welcome to She Lights the Way.
Thank you. I think it's over the last couple of years, you start really thinking about how to give back more. And for me, it's been how to give back to women. We all have these amazing networks that we've built. And, how do I utilize my network to help other people? A lot of people had a rough year last year from a layoff perspective. And one of the things that I've really tried to do is utilize my network to try to help them, whether it's connecting them with somebody, whether it's just checking in with them once a week, then saying, hey, I'm thinking about you. And I've had a couple people say, who've even told me, they're like, you have no idea how much it made my day that you just checked in.
Absolutely. We're at a point now where, like you said, we've built these great networks. We have this knowledge to share. And how do we go about doing that so that we benefit each other and we can inspire each other? And then we can also share what we've learned along the way with those who are coming after us, right?
There's been a real evolution when I would say all the way from my 20s, even all the way through probably my mid 40s. A lot of women executives didn't help other women. I think they were trying so hard to be one of the guys, and you didn't get any help at all. I had one manager, a woman who was amazing, and we're still friends. She's long since retired, and she was phenomenal. But for the most part, I didn't get a lot of help. And I would say almost the opposite, was held to a different standard than men. And so that's part of why I've been on panels where I have women come up to me afterwards and they're like, hey, I've started this fund or I'm doing this. And they're like in their late 20s or their early 30s, and they're really looking for female mentorship because in a lot of industries that's still primarily men. And I'm feeling stronger and stronger about this at this stage of my life. And I want to be able to give back. And part of being able to give back is by helping others be lifted up.
You've dealt with being the only woman at the table. And I have as well in the tech industry. And I've been amazed as I've been just researching different fields, how this is not unique to the tech industry. It's so widespread. You're in packaging. Can you talk a little bit about what you do now and how you've dealt with that reality over the years? How did you address that in your own journey?
So yeah, I'm the president of the enterprise group for a company called AE Global. They're headquartered in Miami. I live part-time in Miami and part-time in Seattle. I joke I wanted to find the two farthest points in the contiguous US to try to travel back and forth. Delta Airlines loves me. I've worked in packaging for a long time and specialize in a couple of industries in terms of packaging solutions. In the packaging industry as a whole, still very, very male dominated. I'm the only woman on my leadership team, which is not unusual. At my current company, I am treated with an amazing amount of respect. I'm truly appreciated and respected for my knowledge, my experience. It's the best place I've ever worked for very many reasons. And even though I work for a lot of packaging companies, primarily men, I never ever made to feel different that way. In terms of other industries that I've specialized in, I've done a lot of work in the cannabis industry. The cannabis industry is almost all men at all levels, and particularly the executive level. One of my previous companies, I remember being in a room where I'm pretty tough, but the language started just getting a little too raunchy. And I literally raised my hand and said, I know you never think of me this way, but I am a girl and you guys are just going too far. I've had things said to me that caught me off guard to the point where I would have had an amazing comeback later that you come with the next day.
Yeah.
I had somebody at a previous company where they were honestly messing around with my compensation. I pushed back at a meeting, and my manager at the time said, well, I don't really understand why this is such a big deal, Beth. Bill makes a good living. It's not like you need your income to pay the mortgage. And I was in so much shock. Of course, you think of the great comeback the next day, right? Which I hate.
Right. I know I
I just
always
wasn't,
do. Yes.
I just wasn't ready for that.
Yeah.
Right. And it was I'll tell you that statement was only 4 years ago. So that statement was not 20 years ago.
Wow.
So,
Wow. And isn't that telling? Yeah.
well, it's
Yeah.
telling because I think that everybody thinks that everything's okay and everything's changed. I was at a conference where there were two men up on stage. It was a cannabis conference, and they were talking about DEI, and they were talking about incorporating people of color and giving people of color opportunities. And I happened to ride in a lift to the airport with one of those gentlemen afterwards, and he goes, "What did you think?" And I said, "No offense, but you didn't mention women once." I said, "DEI is about women too." I said, "It's great that you guys talk about people of color being disadvantaged." And I said, "And I'm not disagreeing with that. That's not my point." I said, "But so are women. And you didn't mention it once." And he was like, "Wow, you're right." And he goes, "Why didn't you say something?" I was like, "I don't want to embarrass anybody." I said, "But I did want to get the opportunity because you're going to be on another panel. You're going to do this again." Um, yeah. So I have had plenty of instances in my career where I've known I've been held to a different standard than my counterparts who were male managers or directors. And it's not a lot of fun. It's a lot better now than it used to be. It is a lot better now. And I'm sure you would think so too. I guess you grow tough, which is a terrible thing to say, but you do. And I think it's part of why I want to help women now because I don't want them to have to deal with the stuff that you and I did.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting, even within a company. I moved from one position to another, just from one organization to another within a single company. And it was even different from that perspective. And it was not something that I was anticipating.
I've had the same experience. I worked for one company for 17 years. And honestly, the reason I left was my last year. I ended up being through another reorg, a new manager, completely different culture, and not a lot of respect for my skill set or experience. And was like, you know what? This isn't working.
In the situations that you faced where you felt like you needed to speak up, where you felt like you were being judged differently. It sounds like you had the courage to speak up either in the moment or, as you described in the list, later.
It gets easier as you get older and you have more experience and you gain more confidence in yourself. I think I'm like probably every other woman out there that I've had times where I just didn't have enough faith in myself or I didn't appreciate my full value. My two biggest mistakes in my entire career, which I think are really normal, is staying at a place or in a position too long. And then, which kind of has to do with self confidence when you get down to it, right? Thinking, I can't get another job or I'm not, good enough, whatever that is. And then honestly, not appreciating my worth, my value. There were a number of years that I was underpaid. And I just don't think, and I've heard this from so many women. I got some great coaching in the last, 3, 4 years from people who really helped me, men and women, people I really respect, who really helped me in terms of negotiating and helped me in terms of understanding my value and being able to fight for my value. I think that's a mistake that a ton of women make. And I think the reason that now, like I speak on a lot of panels now, and I've done a number of podcasts and I have a lot of confidence in myself. Yeah, I still get nervous. My trick when I'm super nervous, I've had a couple of conferences, they were really big conferences, as I had people come to my room to do my hair and my makeup ahead of time, because then you feel like a rock star. Sometimes you just need like a little extra, like, okay, I'm speaking in a room in front of, 2,000 people. What's going to help me feel strong? But yeah, I think a lot of it is experience and understanding your worth, understanding your value, having that self confidence. And there are a ton of things that I do now that there's no way I could have done when I was 26 or even maybe 35.
I so resonate with staying in a position too long, right? And then later on, feeling confident enough even to forge She Lights the Way, right? Whereas earlier in my career, I probably would not have had the courage or confidence to do that or to think in that way or to even think it was possible for me to do something like this. Were there things that you think influenced you in your younger years that influenced your experience through college and then to where you are today?
I think going to an all girls Catholic high school, St. Mary's in Portland, was a big part of who I am. I was actually really shy, which when I tell that to people, nobody believes me, but I was.
No, you're
I
right,
was
Beth.
really
I didn't believe.
I was
Yeah.
I was pretty shy. I was a really late bloomer. Like I was 4'9" until my junior year. I didn't need a bra till college. So I just yeah, it going to an all girls Catholic high school really helped me because I wasn't worried about what boys thought. I wasn't worried about makeup. I was a really good student, right? I was a 4-point student and all I had to do was think about was going to school, and I got to do clubs and stuff that I probably wouldn't have done if I had that pressure of going to a really big co-ed high school. And it's funny because I've been like when I went to was it my 25th? Must have been my 25th reunion. And a bunch of the girls were like, I found out afterwards, they were like, wow, Beth, she is like so much fun. It was like, we didn't even know you. And I was pretty quiet. I was pretty shy. So I would say St. Mary's. And then honestly, our sorority really helped mold me a lot. And having leadership opportunities and being in an environment where you kind of have that instant group of friends. My path to where I am now was actually kind of linear. So I was a journalism major in PR and advertising, and then graduated early, got an internship, instantly went to work for an ad agency, and then ended up really focusing more in production, which I had learned all about and found out that I really liked. And then I ended up moving to Seattle and going to work for Safeco and managed 5 of their product lines from a marketing communications perspective. And part of that was managing about a $3.5 million print budget. So I got really good at understanding print and paper and design. But again, that was going back, those were all things I learned at U of O. And then I was still pissed off at Professor Ryan, the only C I received in my entire educational career, and it was for an 88, for an 88 to never be a C. So still bitter. I cried. My dad told me to get real because I was graduating. And then I had always kind of wanted to be a VP of sales and marketing. And I went to my manager at Safeco and said, I would really like the opportunity to go into sales. And she told me that I didn't have what it took to go into sales. So that just made me mad. You have like turning points. That just made me mad. And then, the heavens opened up, and 3 weeks later, a recruiter called me and asked if I wanted to. He had heard my name from a bunch of people in Seattle, and there was a paper mill that had an opening. And at the time, those were hard to get. So went to work for a small one for 2 years, and then ended up going to work for Nina Paper for 17 years, which at the time and still is one of the marquee paper manufacturers in the world. And it was a great experience. And I got to start their packaging division. And then from there, ended up moving to a couple of customers, and then ended up getting hired by my current company that tried to hire me for 2 years. They said it was the long, slow dating process before I finally said yeah, and got the opportunity to do what I do now and build my team. But I love working with premium products and premium brands. So I've had the opportunity to do some amazing work with companies like Tiffany. I built their Tiffany home packaging program. I redesigned their e-commerce packaging. When I was at Nina, Tiffany changed their pattern for the paper for only the third time in their 150-year history, and I got to be part of that process. I did work with Starbucks for about 20 years. My biggest accomplishment and saddest accomplishment there was redesigning all the packaging for Tivana. It was beautiful. And then like 4 weeks later, they announced they're closing all the Tivana stores. I was like, what? I just did that. It was very sad. I've done work with divisions of Estee Lauder and L'Oreal. I've done a lot of work in the cannabis industry. I've even done work with companies like Chick-fil-A and Culligan. So I have a very diverse background. I love what I do, and I love building teams.
Talk a little bit about what your philosophy is around building this and what you're proudest of.
Working for me is I just want you to work hard and tell the truth. And if you do that, everything else will work out. I don't like surprises. I don't get mad unless you hide something, right? Like, I have somebody who worked for me for a long time at Nina who used to tell the story. She called to tell me that she was losing a big piece of business. It was like a $2 million piece of business, and she was going to lose it. They had given her a heads up that she was going to lose it in a year. And she called me, and I was like, well, that's fine. That's okay. We've got a year. We'll go find some other stuff. And she used to tell people, she goes, she hadn't worked for me for very long. She goes, I thought that she'd be so upset. And I was like, you told me right away. We're good. I used to work for a woman who was amazing, who used to use the line, tell the truth as fast as you can. And I love that line. I think it's really true. Yeah, I think if you communicate and you work really hard, acknowledge when you don't understand something, acknowledge when you need help. I'm not a mind reader. I can't help you if I don't know. I joke, I love to bulldoze stuff out of the way. Tell me what challenges you're having. Tell me what you need me to remove. I'll do it all day long. But again, I'm not a very good guesser. So those are some of the things. I want people to be kind to each other. I have seen people not on my team, but I've seen that happen. I managed a team where I inherited somebody who wasn't very kind to people. That was a problem. I don't like it when people take credit for other people's work. I got a hard time with that too. That manager I mentioned, Marjorie, she was amazing. She also told me that part of my job was to lift my people up in management size to make sure that they knew what people were doing. I had one guy who worked for me who was just the biggest goofball on the planet. I loved Chris, but he was a total goofball. And if you just saw him or saw how he was, you'd be like, oh, that guy's an idiot. He was one of my best salespeople. But I had to make sure that our president of my business unit at that time understood. I was like, this guy's actually really good. I know he's goofy, he's kind of silly, but he's also the guy who's in his customer's office bringing them homemade cookies on Christmas Eve. So that was another thing I learned a long time ago is to lift everybody up. I'm a big believer in working as a team. I think you can deliver individually while still lifting each other up.
The teams I've been on in my career that I just say, oh my gosh, I love those teams. What I didn't realize, I guess what was a surprise to me was, at least for me, there have been two across the many years, right? That was the surprise to me was, oh, wow, you're going to have some magical teams, but I won't have very many of them. When I had my first experience, it was pretty early in my career. And I didn't know any better, right? I didn't know that, oh, wow, this is a team that collaborates, that is kind to each other, that we can accomplish more together than we can individually. And because that happened when I was younger, I thought, that I would have more of those. So that's been a surprise to me. It is absolutely refreshing to hear you talk about all of the things that are important to you as a manager, because I think they're the things that really help teams unite and collaborate and accomplish more than what they each could on their own.
Yeah, I haven't thought about it until you brought it up. The team I've built here, I'm super proud of and I love what we're doing. And I just we have such a great future together and we are lifting all each other. And I had one other amazing one a number of years ago in hindsight. I got promoted and was tapped to build another team. And when I had to call my team that I was leaving, I cried. I bawled. I cried so hard. I was crying. I was in that Atlanta airport and I was bawling. And this lovely woman came over to me and she put her arm around me and she goes, "Are you okay, honey?" And I was like, "No, I'm not. I am not." Yeah, I cried real hard. It's okay to do that sometimes, by the way.
Yeah. To be real, right? To
Yep.
be a human being.
Hmm.
Yeah. So you have this amazing career, this breadth of experience. What advice would you give others?
Know your worth. It's really important. I wasn't always very good about that. It's probably one of my failure is a hard word. I just wished I had figured it out a little earlier. And I know other women who would say the same thing. Know your worth, never sell yourself short, never be afraid to ask. Use your network, network now, network immediately, network in college, LinkedIn. Sorry, it's really everything. And it's my favorite social media because it's really an opportunity to build a strong network. It's a great way for me to be able to help others. It's a great way for, somebody who wants to understand me if they're looking at working for me, if they're looking at working with me as a customer or as a vendor. Oh, you want to go to work for this company? Check out companies you're interested, see if I'm connected with anybody there and I can make an intro. I'm always amazed when I meet somebody who's interviewing for a job, especially a sales job, and they're like 35 years old and I go on like the LinkedIn and they have 75 connections. And I'm like, oh, red flag, red flag. Be patient, be patient with others and be patient with yourself. I haven't always been that way. That's a good one. That's a really good one. I haven't always been as good as I should about that, both with others and myself. And I have somebody who works for me who laughs about that because she's known me for a while. She goes, "You are just so patient now in comparison to the way you used to be." And I was like, "Oh, no, I grew up." If somebody ever gives you an opportunity to take a class, learn, take it. I worked at a company called Veritiv and they were really free with like, "Oh, you can take this class, you can take this." I raised my hand for every single one. Somebody's going to give me free training. I am in every time. I did that at Safeco. I took every class. I know more about insurance than I ever wanted to know, but it was like somebody's going to give me a free class. I'm all in.
Yeah.
And I always tell my people that any team I've ever led I was like, please tell me at the beginning of the year if you'd like to take a class in something. I'll totally pay for it as long as it's not $5,000. Right. And I'm serious. And I always say, take a class that's either going to help you professionally or personally or or in the future. It doesn't have to be at this company, but always, always take that opportunity. Take care of your health. We talked about that. I
Yeah.
haven't always been good about that. Take care of your health.
Me either. Me either.
Let's
Right.
see. Remember to keep your life in balance. I joke I have 4 buckets: my husband, my friends, my family, and my job. I have 4 buckets. And if I'm doing a good job, they're all getting the appropriate attention. And if you're giving too much attention to one of the others, then all the buckets fail.
So, Beth, when's next? As we look forward into the new year, what are you most excited about?
Let's see. Like I said, I'm really excited about the team I built, and I have some aggressive goals for my team this year and myself. And I believe that we are well positioned to do that. I'm excited about continuing to explore how to give back, like working with people like you.
And I too am looking forward to the year ahead and to collaborating on something magical.
We talked about our network. Well, right now I'm doing a bunch of work with a woman that I've been friends with since 1994,
Oh, okay.
which is really funny. And the first time she was on a call with some of my team, and we were like introducing each other, and I was like, "So I've known Diana since 1994." And they're like, "What?" And I was like, "Yeah, I know, it's crazy." So that is really fun. I mean, that's really fun. And being able to take these people that you've worked with over time. I have people I have like customers that I've known for a long time in different roles. I'm finding ways to work together. That's a blast. And again, I really want to find a way to work more in terms of women's wellness. And I don't know what that means yet. And I don't know if, I think it's probably a lot of things. I think part of it's giving back physically, some of it funds, part of it's like working with companies in that space and helping them be successful, whether just being a mentor or the packaging or something. I'm really, really passionate about that space. I think that space is going to become more and more important to me over time. Yeah, that space means a lot to me. Um, and having some fun with giving back. So on December 4th, I read this great article about this little kid who was 9 and he was turning 10. And he wanted to commit 10 good deeds before he turned 10. And so I decided on December 4th that I was going to do 57 good deeds before I turned 57 in June. I've already gotten a couple of them done. And they are unplanned. How do I put that? I'm just trying to find interesting ways to be kind and give back. And my first one was I called a girlfriend who I went to high school with, who lives in Vegas, who went to Oregon. And I called her 5 days before the game and said, "Hey, if I can get 2 tickets, do you want to go with me to the championship game?" And made that happen. And that was my gift to her. Um,
Sweet. Oh, that's
that
awesome.
was so I just
Yeah.
want to do 57 acts of kindness before June 4th.
That's cool. And what a wonderful goal. So, as we wrap up, what does She Lights the Way mean to you?
Oh, what does she lights the way? I think of the Statue of Liberty. So
Wow. Okay. Okay. I can see
I
how you
think I
got
think
there.
I think of the Statue of Liberty lighting the way for the huddled masses. And then I think of what we've been talking about, which is lighting the way for the women behind us so that they can be successful and it's not as hard for them as it was for us, and we will have a female president someday.
We will someday. Yes.
I think it's going to be Gretchen Whitmer. I
Okay.
like her. We have cousins who live in Michigan, and I guess they call her lovingly Big Gretch. And I kind of
Oh,
love that.
that
I
is
do. I
cool.
love that.
I mean, that
Like,
is
I
a
love that. It's like,
bold
yeah,
thing, right? That's sweet.
but I
Yeah.
love it. Because
Yeah.
when they first
Yeah.
said it, I was like, and then my sister was like, "No, I think they actually mean that as a compliment." And I was like, "It's kind of awesome, right?"
Right. Right. Yes.
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 So cool.
So that's what I think of when she says, when she lights the way. I applaud what you're doing. I really mean that. One of my mentors and friends was a woman who's a retired EVP from Starbucks. And I said, when I got this job, I was 53. And I was like, God, I just feel late. right? Like I'm late at this. And she was like, Beth, she goes, I didn't become an EVP at Starbucks till I was in my late 50s. And I was like, awesome, right? And everything I'm reading says that we have so much to accomplish and feel good about in our 50s and 60s. I just had to be reminded.
Thanks so much for being here and for listening to my conversation with Beth Corbett. She's a true leader in the world of sustainable packaging and supply chain solutions, and in lighting the way for others. You can learn more about Beth and her work and connect with her on her LinkedIn profile. That link is in the show notes. I would love to hear what resonated most with you about our conversation. You can leave a comment on any of the social channels for She Lights the Way, or shoot me an email at nicole@shelightstheway.com. I'd love to hear from you. Until next time,